there are lots of ways to talk about this, but the most kind of foundational way, and talk about, say, the things that we don't see, would be the just that we have different experiences and we have different vantage points. This is basic. You all know this, right? Me, as a man, I see the world differently than I would see it if I was a woman. If I was trans, if I used to be a woman and now I am a man, I transitioned over. Clearly, I would see the world differently than if I was just a woman or a man and never made a transition. I mean, this is basic. If you grew up rich, you see the world differently than if you grew up poor. But the problem is that we oftentimes, in the heat of kind of thinking about the world or engaging other people, we oftentimes forget it. And we will oftentimes imagine that we all see the world in a very similar way. Okay, so I had actually a really cool experience on Sunday where I just personally was in the middle of a different vantage point issue that was just really brought this home in a different way. And I said, I just have to start the class in this way. So with our team, our World in Conversation team, we had a team building day out at Shavers Creek Environmental Center, where we heard about that last week. And one of the exercises was to look at photos. Was one group of people look at photos, and then they would tell another group of people how to set up blocks. And the blocks were sitting on the ground. And then they would be directed by people who were looking at the photos to build the structures with the blocks that those people see in the photos. But the issue is, whoever created this exercise, they built structures, and then they took photos of the structures from lots of different angles and lots of vantage points so that no one person saw exactly the same thing. So all of us on the outside that are looking at our cards and saying, hey, I think that the yellow block needs to go right next to the green block, and so on and so forth, right? So then you try to build collectively, if you're working together in a team and you're working really well, you build what is in the blocks. So this would be an example of some of the blocks. So these two are particularly important for the story, the experience that I had. So these two blue blocks, they're the same size, about 2.5 inches tall, and one's square and one's round. Now, I get a photo, and I say, hey, they start building this and this and this and this, and then they get to this one, and I say, hey, someone says, okay, well, that's the round circular block. And I say, no, actually, it's the square one. And they say, no, it's the round circular one. And I say, nah, it's square. We're going to get this all wrong if we don't start out correctly. So it's square. And a couple other people say, no, it's not square, it's circular. And I'm certain it's square because I'm looking at it. I just can't see anything other than the fact that right there is square. Okay, so this is the one we're talking about, not this one, this one. And I'm saying it's square. And they're saying it's this one. And I'm saying it's this one. Okay, now, I'm in the middle of this thinking to myself, the only way for me to know for certain would be to reproduce that photo, that I would have to squeeze up in the middle of the group, get on the ground, and look at it just like this and see exactly what that camera was seeing. And they said, but I can't do that. So what I have to do is I have to rely on them. And I'm saying, listen, I don't know what to say here, but I'm 99% certain it's square. Then I had an accomplice another person who had a very similar photo as mine. And she said, yeah, I got to say it's square too. So now you get these three people who are saying it's round. Two of us are saying it's square. Now, I'm 99% certain it's square. They say, we're 100% certain it's round. And I'm saying, well, I'm 99. I'm not 100 because I can't be 100 because while I know that that's square, I don't know, I'm not 100% certain because I can't see it from up above. Now, here's the cool thing. It just said, so the World in Conversation team is comprised of people from all over the world, people of every ethnic group and ancestry group, racial group, gender, LGBT, rich, poor, whatever, conservative, liberal, immensely diverse group. It just so happened that the three people who were saying it's round were women who were black and brown. And me and the other person who was saying it was square happened to be white. Now, this has nothing to do with the reason we were thinking it was a story. It just symbolically sort of played itself out in a really cool way. So I'm looking at my white colleague, my square colleague, we're going like, yeah, square, got it. And we're certain they're wrong. And they're certain they're right. And so there was nothing, again, there's nothing about race in there. I'm just saying it's just symbolic, right? So then we finish the game, and I look at some of their photos. And here's one of their photos. And then I look back at mine, and I'm like, whoa. They took that photo so you'd think it was square, but it's actually round. Because that's the block we're talking about right there. And I think, isn't this awesome? That it wasn't a big deal. We weren't in an argument. We weren't in anything. But it's about vantage point, and it's about perception. And so here it is, these two people perceiving the square and are really certain. I wouldn't have bet the house on it. Because I couldn't, that could have been circular in my mind, but I was certain that I was right. And they were 100% certain that they were right. And I thought, now bring race into it, bring gender into it, bring class, bring nationality, bring all sorts of, gay, lesbian, straight, whatever it is, religion, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, whatever it is, the kinds of things that divide us and that we argue about. And one person is saying it's this, and the other person is saying it's that. And in some ways, they're both right in a certain sense because, perceptually speaking, that is square. But in the end, it's round. And so this is in some ways so symbolic of the kinds of things that divide us because I couldn't see what they saw because it was on their card and they weren't allowed to show me their card and I wasn't allowed to show them my card. If they couldn't see what I was seeing, they're wondering, why are you saying this is square? What could your card possibly look like that in a million years you could even see that as square? But at the end, they saw it. They're like, oh, okay, I see why you would say that. I'm like, and I see absolutely why you would say it was round. And I was just gotten to the place where I accepted because they were so 100% certain. So you see that, right? Very basic perceptions, angles, understandings, experiences. We come from the world, we come to the world from different places, and so we see different things. The problem is we naturally are inclined to believe what it is that we see and what we've been taught and led to believe. So here, that's sociology at the basic level. Here's sociology at the much more complex level. This is the awesomeness of sociology. And I will say this is what makes this field of study so mind-blowing and what I learned in that early. I didn't even learn it. To be honest with you, I was teaching sociology for 4 years before I got this. And it was my wife who was reading an intro to sociology book that I was using in my class. And she was my girlfriend at the time, but she just sat down and started reading it and was saying, whoa, sociology, this is really amazing. And I'm reading the book, but I didn't really understand it. And I said, what is it? What do you see? Like, what is this about? And then she walked me through it. And I said, oh, shit. Whoa. Oh, that is cool. This is a cool field that I'm in, right? Meanwhile, I'm studying for my PhD. I'm teaching it to other people, but I have no idea what it is, right? Which is kind of how life is, right? If you can't do it, you teach, right? So, here's the thing. Our lives are influenced by factors, forces that mostly we can see and we can identify, but it's also influenced by invisible factors and forces that we don't see, we will never see, and we will never understand. And there's a way in which human beings are like puppets. And we live in the world like these puppets, and all these invisible strings are connected to us in ways, not about, social class, whether we grow up in a single-parent household or two parents or five parents, whether, our parents are gay or straight, or our parents are short or tall or disabled, or any million factors and forces that we can pick and parse out, right? But this is about the invisible ones that you don't see and you mostly will never see, and we mostly won't understand, and what we're always searching for and trying to get. The ones that, so some of the strings, right, were puppets, and some of them you can all see, right? The fact that I'm a man. You get that. Like, you don't see how it influences me. That's what we do in sociology. How do I have a different understanding of the world? How do I see the world and experience the world as a man that's different than people experience it as a woman? So those strings are the ones that we look at a lot, and we see them, and they're connected. They're coming down from the sky. They're connected to me. They're connected to everybody else, and I'm sort of this puppet kind of thing, right? But we're looking for the invisible ones. The ones that, whoa, what just happened there? Like, what's influencing me that I can't, that is structured by society, but that nobody can see and nobody can really organize? So I will give you an example. Right? The example, we think that we're free actors, okay? There's some things that we're really free about. Like, I make decisions about things. So, there's some ways in which, I'm going to do the puppet thing, right? You know what? Not only am I going to do the puppet thing, I'm going to stand up on the table and really play it out, okay? So here I am. I'm being moved around by things, and I get it, and I'm being shaped by everything that I am, and everything is happening to me, and right now I'm being shaped by all sorts of things, and then, but I have this idea that, there's some ways in which my hand is going to move, in which I'm going to move, or some things I'm going to think that I'm going to choose to think. I'm going to choose to do. And the only way that I'm going to move my hand or move my body or do some contortion, some really weird contortion, is that if I choose it. Society is never going to get me to do this in the middle of a classroom at Penn State University. Never. Nothing could influence me doing this except my own free thought. Okay? Here's another one. So this is actually this is deeply personal for some of you. So hang on. Think about something that is really, really, really sensitive and personal to us as individuals. What's the most deeply personal and sensitive thing that we could choose to do that nobody could ever talk us into doing? Nobody could ever talk us into doing. It's me and only me that's going to choose it. Like, you could talk me into moving my body like this. But what about, give me something else. What's something else? Think about what that other thing could be that you would never do unless you chose to do it. How about, so I have two examples. How about one is cutting? Cutting. And many of you cut. And you all probably know, you definitely know somebody who cuts. Okay? And by cutting, I mean, for whatever reason, taking some kind of a sharp object and making some kind of scars on my skin. And if I said to you, any one of you, I said, hey, here's a razor blade. And what I want you to do is take this razor blade and cut the underside of your arm. Or cut the outer side of your thigh. Make a mark on you. Okay? Now, this is actually, now I'm speaking right to those of you who do cut. Because in a class this size, there are plenty of people. And make cuts under your arm. Feel that. So go ahead and do it, right? So here, bro, here's a razor blade. I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to cut. Like, what are the chances that I could talk any one of you if I handed out 750 or so, 800 razor blades, and I said, listen, sitting here in class, I just want you to start cutting. None of you would, of course you would say, I would never do that. You can't talk me. This is a personal decision. There's no way you're going to talk me into this, right? But here's what sociology tells us. You know what? But people who cut, they don't think so. They think that they're having their own unique experience and they're choosing it. But sociology tells us actually what we see is some really interesting similarities between people who cut. They have very similar sociological and social and historical experiences. You say, well, hang on a minute. What does that mean? Well, what it means is, if you have a similar, if I could take all the people in the class who have cut, who have thought about cutting, and I put you all in one section, and I start to say, whoa, y'all have a very kind of similar experience. You have a similar thing going on. We see all these connections between you. What that means is you're obviously not choosing this. Because if you're having these similar experiences, the invisible strings are coming down and connecting to you in ways that are very similar to the ways they connect to other people in this section. And they're not connected to them. So there's something happening with you that's leading you to make this really personal decision that you think is your decision. And in fact, sociology is telling us, hey, you're just sort of a puppet here, by the way. Not entirely, but very much so. You say, how is that possible? Right? How's that possible? That's the sociological imagination. That's the deep ways in which our experiences are shaped by things that we don't see and will never see. And then the other classic story, the classic study in sociology that bears this out, is about another deeply disturbing, just really a painful human experience, which is suicide. And how many of you have had friends or loved ones or people close to you who've committed suicide? And I'm not going to ask because I don't need to ask, but many of you have thought about suicide. Some may be thinking about suicide. Right now, you're off in school, it's the beginning. Some of you may be struggling with this. And thoughts, suicidal thoughts. And first off, what I want to say is, and same with cutting, is talk about it. It's not about you. It's not about you. And what sociology teaches us with these deeply personal experiences is that it's not about us. Because here's the other thing we see. Suicide, we see very deep similarities in people who commit suicide. There are different reasons why they do, but they can be broken into groups. Now, when I sit down and I decide, hey, I'm going to take a bottle of pills, or I'm going to jump off a building, or I'm going to stab myself, or shoot myself, or asphyxiate myself. All of that, I'm never thinking, whoa, I'm having these suicidal thoughts, and I'm wondering about whether society is impacting me in some way. What's my sociological place in the world? Is this actually structuring the way I'm seeing the world? I think that I'm just depressed, or I think that I'm just upset, or I think that it's really about me, because clearly I'm choosing this. Because nobody can tell me. It's not about that. But what sociology says is actually, what we see is that suicide rates are very stable. And if suicide rates are very stable, then that means human beings, the invisible strings, are connecting year after year after year in a population of people that leads them to act in very similar ways over time, which means that people who are killing themselves are partly choosing to kill themselves, but their behavior is also being shaped by factors and forces that they don't see, the invisible strings of causality. And that's the fascinating part of sociology. And that's where we start today's class, because that's the stuff that we don't see and we don't comprehend. And then we're sitting back and thinking that we're understanding the world, and we're not understanding the world. And by the way, at the end of class, Jeff will put up on the screen the hotline number for suicide prevention that you really need to, those of you who are having thoughts or know people who are, listen, man, this isn't about you. So it is about you, obviously, but it's also about other things. And so...
today's actually National, or is Worldwide Suicide Prevention Day.
Today is? Oh my God. Seriously? Well, there we go. Yeah, take this seriously. So do you get that, right? Do you get that? So you know, like, it's almost like some of us, a certain number of us are destined, get this, right? Get this. I'm going to say it in a different way. Are destined to commit suicide this year. Let's just say in the state of Pennsylvania or in the United States. There's a certain number of us who are destined to commit suicide, and that number doesn't change very much at all. It's this much, and next year it's this much, and next year it's this much. That means almost like the society is calling for a certain number of people to experience their lives in such a way that they would make the decision to kill themselves. And if society is calling on us, it's like there are these invisible beings who are just reaching down and tying these strings to us in different ways that we don't even see. And they're leading a certain number of people in particular collectivities to make decisions that they think are their own, but they're not. They're the world's decisions. Dudes, that is mind-blowing. And that's why sociology is awesome, because we're trying to look at this. And that's why I never, ever, ever, ever make the statement that I'm free. I'm unfree in ways that I don't even understand that I'm unfree. I can be a little bit more free, maybe, but oh my God. Okay, so here. Oh, by the way, here's like I just want to put this up here just to sort of show you. You know, there are trends in society that make that go up and down, but mostly it's very simple. Okay, so here. Wait. All right, so I want to do this. So how does this come into play with race and ethnicity and gender and the issues that we're talking about in this class? How does this come into play? So let's do a kind of an experiment of sorts, right? First off, I was watching this video earlier today about gang members in Oakland, California, and then in Southern California. And so people this guy who was in a gang and is now a professor was talking about his experiences as a young Latino man, and then talking to other people who are currently in gangs, and they were talking about things. And I was thinking, oh my God, the things they were saying were really mind-blowing, right? And I thought, they're mind-blowing to me, and I'm a sociologist. This is what I'm trained to think about and study and reflect on every single day of my life. But how many of us think that we could see somebody in a gang and understand what the factors and forces are that led that person to join a gang? How many of us think that? And imagine like, oh, well, people join gangs. And like, oh my God, shut the F up. Come on, man. Like, you have no idea. You have no idea. You could never, ever understand. You could begin to get there a little bit. You could sit down. You could spend a year doing an ethnography with people in gangs in California, and you could begin to kind of get it. But even then, you wouldn't get the deep emotional piece, right? That's not a problem. That's a discovery. It's an awesome discovery that I can never really understand that. I can get closer. Like, I can walk over here. I can talk to you. I can say, hey, what's it like? Let's go. Come on, give me a little bit. I can read about it. I can study about it. I can this, that, and the other thing. But, well, I have to humble myself to say, in the end, I can get kind of close, but I'm really just not going to fully get it. Now, that is everybody. Like, for example, just because you're not white, and you grow up around a lot of white people, do not do not fancy yourself and embarrass yourself intellectually into thinking, oh yeah, I understand white people. I understand white people better than white people understand me. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Do you know how complicated it is to be white? You know, like, how complicated it is to be white? How much you gotta be white to understand what whiteness is? You might have, okay, so here, right? Like if you're black and brown in the United States, you definitely, probably, almost certainly have a little bit better understanding of white people than white people have of you. Definitely, not even a question, right? So here's the middle ground, back and forth, right? Okay, you're like right here, right? You're a little bit closer to seeing why? Because you got to manage white people. White people can, mostly, not all people. Like, how many white people grow up in a really, really, really multicultural area in school and still do and are just super multicultural? You just spend almost your whole life around both white people and equally black and brown people. Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you got it. There's a few people, so you got it. All right. So you're over here going like, yeah, I actually have a fairly good understanding of black and brown people because, I spend a lot of time. Most white people aren't like that. However, a much higher percentage of black and brown people are negotiating whiteness on a daily basis. Like, you don't have to negotiate black and brownness. Like, you don't. If you're white, you can mostly, unless, you're in certain situations, like if you're in the military or, any number of things, you can mostly not have to negotiate blackness and brownness very much. It's because you really don't. Like, you can travel and you can go overseas and almost never leave the United States. I remember, I spent quite a number of Christmases in the Middle East, in the Gulf region in the Middle East. And I remember, I'd show up at these hotels, right? And there's Santa Clauses. I was in Iraq last December, and we're staying at this hotel. And as we walk in the hotel, there's this statue of Santa Claus that plays it's a life-size statue playing the saxophone, right? And there's a Christmas tree, and the Santa Claus is saying, every time we walk in, it's playing Jingle Bells, and Christmas trees everywhere, and I'm like, God, I could never leave. I'm in Iraq, and I feel like I'm back in the United States, right? You can travel and never really get it, but if you're white, you can distance yourself because you just can, and many people do. But if you're black and brown, it's really much harder. That being said, so therefore, got it, black and brown people, you are definitely better at understanding white people on average than white people are at understanding you. On average, not a question. However, dudes, you have no idea what it means to be white, man. Unless you are a person who completely grows up like some of the white people in here, and you're in a black and brown culture equally as a white culture. If you're not way over here living in it every day, and even then you don't know what it is to walk into a room with white skin. You just don't. It's so complex. The inner workings of the mind, the feeling, just like white people, dudes, when black and brown people will say sometimes you just don't get it. Believe them. You just don't get it. But it's also true with white people. I've really come to understand whiteness in a way, whoa, the immense complexities, right? And so you got it, right? So don't imagine that you get the whiteness either, okay? But nonetheless, what are the factors and forces that are shaping us in this world, okay? So here's one. We're going to do an experiment. Here's a study. So this person really wanted to understand some of the hidden strings. Because, if I go around the room and I say to people, hey, are you racist? You'd be like, you racist? No. Yeah, you don't look racist. Are you racist? No, of course I'm not. Are you racist? Yeah. Are you? Are you racist? Come on, seriously? Are you racist? Are you sure about that? Come on, you're white. You got to be fuck. They're all going to say no. And we're all going to have these ideas, and we all think our minds are really clear, and we're like, okay, it's all good, got it. But yet, black and brown people are always saying these things, actually not complaining very much. White people, really fast, let me just say something. Black and brown people actually don't complain very much at all. That's just like a target thing. White people say this because it's our way of like not having to look at issues. Oh, y'all complaining all the time. And then we tune out to what's being said. Please. Black and brown people, they have, just like women, have so much to complain about, trust me. And like, these people swallow a lot. Okay? Anyway, so this person wanted to say, how are these invisible strings shaping people's behavior, right? So let's do this. I was going to bring a couple volunteers up, but that's going to come in a hot second. So what they said was, so people in the back, don't look, the whole back half of the class, just look down. Don't look at the screen, okay? Everyone in the back, either close your eyes, don't look at the screen, whatever, because we're going to do an experiment here, right? It's like an experiment. I'm going to change it. Don't look at it. Ready? People in the front, take a look at this image. Okay, in the back, close your eyes. If you're in the second half of the room, I see some of you with your eyes open. Like, seriously. Okay, don't look. All right? Got it? Okay, Khalil, you got it? All right, man. I'm watching you, pal. Okay, here we go. So, take a look at that in the front of the room. Got it? Okay, everyone don't look at the screen in the back. In the front, close your eyes. Take a look at that. You got it? Ready, front? Okay, now. Close your eyes in the front. Okay, in the back, open your eyes. In the front, don't look at the screen. Okay? All right, blacken the screen. Okay, open your eyes now. Now, here's the deal. So this person did that right there. Got groups of people, said, hey, I'm going to have you look at these images, and I'm going to show the image with a word, and I'm going to see which one you see, right? Now, here it is. Okay, now Now find the image. Which one do you think it is? Okay, so hang on. We're going to do it. Let's just do it again really fast because it seems like, so blacken the screen again. Okay, people in the front, close your eyes. People in the back, people in the back, open your eyes. Look at the screen now. Okay, got it? Okay, blacken it. Okay, close your eyes in the back, open your eyes in the front. Okay, look at the screen now. Got it? Okay. Find the image. You see it? You got it? So here's what he found. How many in the front? How many in the front? What was the word for you? Educated? No, which one was yours? Okay, the front. You ready? Okay, so how many of you think the image is this one right here? How many think it's this one? 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 And how many this one? Anybody this one? So here's what this person saw. If you got a simple word, ignorant, educated, or ignorant, let's say educated, you tended to see these images, the lighter skinned images, as more educated. If you got that right here, if you saw that face with ignorant, you tended to think that it was one of these images. So think about this, right? Think about this. Dark skin, the darker the skin, of a person somewhere in the magic of the human mind is associated with more ignorant. The lighter the skin of a human, somewhere in the magic and the complexities of the human mind is more educated. Not a single one of you, not a single one of us in this room would ever say, if I put a mic in front of your face and said, hey, how often do you associate, Broman, how often do you associate lighter skin with being more educated and darker skin with being more ignorant?
I have no clue.
You have no clue. Do you do that? Do you think you do that?
I really don't know.
Yeah. All right. Bro, how about you, man? How about you? Darker skin, more ignorant, lighter skin, more educated.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Yeah, bro, how about you, man? You look like a not very you look like a nice guy, man. Do you do that?
No, never.
Yeah. I don't ever do it either. But you know what? In this study, we found out that actually we do. All sorts of things, my friends. All sorts of things. These invisible strings right here are shaping us in ways that are just, oh my God, right? So here, once again, right? Here I am, the puppet. Sam, the white guy, the man, the straight man, the American, walking through the world thinking that, yeah, I'm making my own decisions. I'm thinking about gender and race and class and disability and all sorts of things in these very thoughtful ways. And I've trained myself to not be racist. And I've trained myself to not hate Arabs and not hate Muslims and not be afraid of them and to not dislike Catholics and not to think Jewish people are all crooks and one and after the other and and to treat women equally and, you know, not think there's something wrong with gay people and not be afraid of black people and not treat black and brown people differently. And I'm doing all that work. And I'm thinking like, yeah, I got this shit, right? I got this. I got it down. And what study after study after study is telling us is that actually you don't. Because when we look for it, we find there are all these ways in which we're being shaped by things that we don't see. Like, oh man. And so one of the things for people, when we talk about race, when you hear, for just as an example, this is not to be an apologist, right? So, like, black people and brown people, and, you know, when you hear white people saying, listen, I don't know, I'm not sure that when you hear that somebody else is saying, look, I have this experience. I'm experiencing this. I'm seeing this. Maybe stop and think that maybe they have something to say. Because in the world of research, we see this all the time. It's just nonstop. Okay, let's, dudes. Hang on, man. Hang on. Bro. Dude, stand up. You look like you have dark skin. Dude, your skin's, they can't even see you from the other side of the room. All right. Dude, here you go. What's your name?
I'm Alex.
Alex?
Yeah.
Class, meet Alex. All right. How is it, like, this is real for you, man?
Yeah.
How is that to hear me? How is it to hear this? Talk to them like that.
I don't know, because, like, I don't know, I saw the image differently from what you told me, so I was kind of shocked a little bit by what you said, but I've heard it before, and I, like, know that is a thing for, like, white people, so.
For everybody, dude.
Yeah.
It's black and brown people, too. Ooh. So how do you live with, do you think about it? Do you, like, when you go in a room, do you like see lighter skinned black people and think like, oh, they might be perceived differently than me because I'm darker?
Not, I don't really try to think about it. I kind of like go in and hope that like everybody else sees me as like an equal, I guess.
As Alex.
As Alex, yeah. Everybody
exactly.
sees me as Alex, but it don't work out like that sometimes, but we always get through it, I guess.
Yeah, we get through it, man. It's really in a way all you can do, right? Like, but yet, But yet, it's like when you see these things, it is kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
when people talk about how skin doesn't matter and racism thing of the past, and it's like, oh yeah, why are we still talking about this? You know what I mean? It's like, well, hang on, maybe there's something to it. Yeah. I don't know, man. Thanks, bro. Yeah. So let's do another one. I need 3 volunteers, and I need a man. And I need 2 women. And it can be any man and any 2 women. People who haven't. Oh, dude, you're perfect, man. Wait, you haven't been up here yet, right? Oh, you're on. All right, now I need 2 women who. Okay, have you been up here yet? Okay, you and just somebody else, man. Wait, someone. Dude, how about in the front row over there? Yep. Okay, dude, you are going to be here. Haley, can you take the 2 women out through the door? And I need you're gonna go with Haley. Okay, my friend. You can have a seat right here. Okay, so take a look at that. So here's what's going to happen. So somebody was doing some research. You're going to interview them for a job. And you're going to follow those questions and make particular note of that right there. Because you got to be smooth, dude. You're dressed for the part. Dude, put your sunglasses on too, by the way. This would be perfect. All right, so here's what it is. Some people wanted to study. Dude, look at this guy. Wait, what's your name?
Valentine.
What is it?
Valentine.
Valentine? No kidding? Oh, dude. Class, hang on. Class, meet fucking Valentine. All right, you better take your glasses off. You'll intimidate them. They'll think it's part of the shtick. Okay, so anyway, listen. So this person was saying, hey, I'm watching this whole Me Too thing, and I'm just like, I don't understand why it is that women put up with some of this sexual nonsense, right? All this sexist stuff, like, why do they put up with it? How is it that they put up with it, right? So he said, you know what? I'm going to actually devise a study, and I'm going to just check it out, right? And one part of the study was interviewing young women, and to see how they would respond to being interviewed, okay? Okay, you go first. Yeah. Okay, what's your name?
Mac.
Mac?
Mac.
Okay, you can have a seat right here. So Mac, this is Valentine. Valentine.
Whatever you feel like.
Do you ever say Valentino? Are you Russian, by the
It
way?
depends what country I'm in.
What's that?
Depends what country I'm in.
Yeah?
In Italy, I'm Valentino. In Spain, I'm Valentino.
All right. So what's your ancestry?
Russia.
Russian? All right. So listen, Mac, you are being interviewed by Valentino for a job.
Okay.
And he's just going to walk you through. So,
All right, I'm ready.
All right, so what's your name?
Mac.
Mac, nice to meet you. Where's your family from?
My family is from Vietnam.
Cool. It says here in your application that you're in college. What are you studying?
I'm studying landscape architecture.
Okay. What is your work experience like?
Recently, I was an orientation leader for international students. So that's pretty cool. I was those kind of people. And I did a lot of internship for graphic design and a lot of construction project.
Cool. So, the important question, do you have a boyfriend?
Yes, but I shouldn't say that out loud.
It's okay. It's just me and you, baby. Just say it.
Wait, hang on. Keep going. Hold on. Next question.
There are people who know me in this class. So, yes, he's in Penn State.
Okay, keep your secrets. So I'm just curious. What do you think about talking about sexual issues in the workplace?
I feel like it's an important topic because like I know that like a lot of people, regardless gender, sometimes get minor harassment from co-workers, but because of like there's a pressure to be like professional, so they don't really talk about it.
So how do you feel about wearing really tight yoga pants at work?
If your yoga instructor is fine.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. You're good. You're done. Thanks. Here, you can actually stand over there. All right. You did great. All right. All right. You're all right. What's up, Doug? Okay. What's your name?
Molly.
Molly. Have a seat, Molly. This is Valentino.
Hello, Valentina.
You're being interviewed for a job.
Is this on?
It's on.
It's on? Oh, okay.
Yep.
So what's your name?
Molly.
Nice to meet you. Where's your family from?
America. Like, literally America.
America, good old USA, all right. So it says in your application that you're in college. What are you studying?
To be determined.
To be
I don't
determined.
know yet.
Yeah. That's a good major, yeah. So, so what is your work experience like?
I've worked in retail. This summer I worked at a special needs home. I worked at a gym. That's about it.
Yeah, got to get that fit body. So the important question, do you have a boyfriend?
I do have a boyfriend, yes.
Very unfortunate. So do you live in the dorms at school?
No, I live in an apartment.
Good, good. So I'm curious, what do you think about talking about sexual issues in the workplace?
Well, I don't think that women should be touched inappropriately in the workplace. They should, like, it's their body, it's their space. No means no.
Okay, so how do you feel about wearing really tight yoga pants at work?
Yoga pants are comfortable, and I think I should be allowed to wear whatever I want.
I agree.
Okay. So, all right. So here we go. Ready? Have a seat up here, y'all. Right? So nice job, dude. You killed it. All right. You killed it. Okay. So here's nice job. You can hang on. Have a seat. You can sit up here. If you want, you can sit up here. You can stand. It doesn't matter. Okay. So here's the deal. So this person says, "Hey, I want to study this, right? So I'm going to design this experiment, which we just watched, and we didn't even watch the whole thing. It goes on further about what happens if people in these interviews, and the interviewer just starts asking really inappropriate questions. So the first thing the person said was, I'm going to send a survey out to women, lots of women, right? And I'm going to see what they say. And so he sends it out to 197 women. 2/3 of all women asking questions just like that, and then a little bit more risque and on, you know, would you wear yoga pants, would you do this, would you do that? 2/3 of the women said, I would not be comfortable with that, and I wouldn't answer the questions. So uncomfortable, I wouldn't answer those questions right there. I wouldn't answer them. In an interview, no way. That's none of their business. You can ask me about yoga pants. You can ask me about that. 16 of the 197 said, I would get up and walk out. Now, you couldn't get up and walk out here, right? So that was a little bit different. And even in a way, you couldn't not answer the questions here because it's part of the class. You don't know what's going to happen. So that's not what it is. I didn't expect either of you to not answer the questions or not walk out, right? But 16 said we would walk out. How many of them, so when they actually did it, just like this, how many of them either refused to answer the question or walked out of the interview? 25 people they interviewed, just like that. How many women refused to answer the question or walk out of the interview? What do you think? 25 people had your experience. How many of them refused to answer any of the questions?
5.
5? What do you think?
I guess 5 too.
What do you think, bro?
I'm thinking like 2 or 3 maybe.
How many walked out of the interview? How many do you think?
I said 5.
You think 5 actually walked out? Yeah? You think? What do you think?
I don't know. Maybe like 2 or 3. I feel like it wasn't that offensive.
Yeah?
Maybe I'm wrong, though. I don't know.
Bro, how about you?
I'm thinking none.
How many? Yeah. So the answer is 0. None. So we're big talkers, right? But there's something when you're sitting down in front of this person right here, right? Here, have us sit right there really fast. So you're in front of the male interviewer, and you're in it, and you're thinking, like, you're in your social class, or you're with your friends, or you're whatever. You're thinking, right? You're thinking maybe independently. You're a big talker. You're like, yeah, I would walk out. I wouldn't answer. F that guy, right? In the moment, there's some strings that come down to say, well, I got to answer this question. Well, I can't get up and walk out. I got to be right here. Exactly. He's just got the rope and he's pulling me in, and I'm here, and I'm not going to get out of it. So it's like, what? So the question of why is it? How does this stuff happen? How can male interviewers, for example, ask these kinds of things and do these kinds of things, and women, for whatever reason, will just stay in it? Because that's what happens. That's what happens. These are the invisible strings. And we're all connected. So, there you go. Dude, you killed it. Thanks, man. Thanks. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks, man. Yo, do you see the profoundness of that, y'all, right? When we get into the world of gender and race and culture and ethnicity and all of these things, do you see that? It's like, do you know how so much is happening to us that we don't see, and how particularly important it is, how important it is for people in the majority, men, able-bodied people, straight people, white people, rich people, whatever it is, people in the majority are just more cognizant of the fact that some of that majority status is given to us by things that we really don't comprehend. So here's what I need, man. I need Dalton and Alaire and Monet. I saw Dalton. And is Alaire and Monet, are you here today? Yo, come down. Is Alaire here today? Dude, you better be here. All right, man. Cool. So Dalton, you sit in the middle. We're going to sit just like we did the other day, man. You sit over there. Larry, you sit on this side. Yeah, why not? Why not just go right back to it? All right, dude. Sure. So, yo, bro, do you have another stick mic? Hey, bro, can you bring the other stick mic down? Bring the other microphone down? Here. Yeah. Okay, so here's my question to you. I want to go back to the other day, right? So Dalton, if you were here the other day, you remember your comment to the effect was we were talking about white privilege, right? And, dude, thanks, bro. And you said, at some point, the two of you were talking, and at some point you said, the two of you sound really angry, right? You said, it was angry.
Well, I said aggressive. Aggressive,
yeah, okay. Even better. Aggressive, right? And so here's my question, right? So first off, for the two of you, how do you know, as women, as black women or brown, you happen to both be black, so it could be black and brown women, it doesn't, but as black women, how do you know, when something uncomfortable happens, that you're like, oh, what was that? And there's race is involved and gender is involved because women, this is very much a thing that goes lots of ways. How do you know when it's about gender or when it's about race? What are the signals that you have? So when he made the comment about, wow, the two of you sound really aggressive. How do you know when it's about gender or when it's about race? Like what signals are there as black women?
I mean, what he said, I mean, I'm not going to say, like, what you said was necessarily, like, your fault. Like, that's just, like, part of just, like, society perceptions. Like, it's, like, an inward thing, just the way, like, that we're built. Like, a lot of people are built as Americans. So I feel like when it comes to certain stereotypes, so what's often commonly seen, so, like, for black women are often seen as, like, aggressive or loud or, like, quote-unquote ghetto or whatever, like that's when the stereotype comes into play. And that's also when like intersectionality comes into play, because it's like a mix of both. So I feel like it goes to women issues, because then like women can't speak up without like fear of being perceived a certain way.
Sure, like the data are pretty clear that women, the things that I can do, getting angry, appearing to be aggressive, being loud, being any number of things, will actually, in most situations, will uplift me, will give me more authority, make me more likable, will do all sorts of things, and that for the two of you, as women, just the women, will actually work against you. But so the intersectionality thing, so how about you, like, what are the cues, what are the signals, like in that moment? When did you go to race or did you go to gender?
I personally went to both, because I felt like the comment was very stereotypical. Anytime black women are given a platform, or women of color are given a platform to talk about race or sensitive subjects, I think that is just the go-to, oh, you're being aggressive, oh, you're being the angry black woman. And I really did feel targeted. I felt singled out. I felt like when you think about women and women talking about these sensitive topics, the first go-to is, oh, you're being sensitive or you're being emotional. But then when you intersect the fact of being a black woman, then you get this, you're being aggressive, you're being rude. So
where where in your mind, like just for the two of you, we're going to get to you, bro, right? It's just in your minds, like what story do you tell yourself about where that comes from? When people say, either men or white people say, yeah, you're being aggressive or you're rude or whatever it is, right? What story do you tell yourself about why they say that?
I say that because they didn't like what I had to say. Anytime.
What do you mean they didn't like it?
I mean, I actually watched a clip, and I watched it a lot, and I really got a lot of feedback from that, and I really don't think I was aggressive at all. I just think that you in particular and the gentleman that was up here probably didn't like what I had to say. So instead of coming at me intellectually saying, like, you know, trying to counteract the argument, you just went to the easy scapegoat and just called me the angry black woman. And that's what they do. You tone police me.
Yeah, but he was actually on your team.
Yeah.
He was trying to make the same argument, right? You were at that moment. You were on the black and brown team. So what if he did? So let's just imagine for a second. So this is you came to the conclusion that he didn't like what you had to say. But I'm going to remind you now. So I'm going to ask you to go at it from a slightly different way. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying we're just exploring. He was on your team,
right? And
he said that. So now. Where do you think that came from?
Because he probably identified with the individual and didn't like what I had to say.
Okay. All right, hang on. Go. What do you think?
I feel like I said, I feel like it's just like a part of like a societal view. And I feel like, I mean, it's 2019, but prior to 2019, there's so many things that created like that stereotype. And I feel like the intersectionality comes into play when it's like she said, you know, women are seen as, you know, if you do this, you know, you're too emotional or whatever. But the race, like the black race, is often perceived as angry. And I feel like that's done like purposely when it comes to like the criminal justice system. Like a black male, if he like gets a little bit loud, it's like, oh my gosh, everyone like clutch their purses and all that. So I feel like when you're a black woman doing that, it's like the same type of theory. And I feel it's like through like media, like news outlets, movies, different things like that just affect like people's like perception like on the daily, especially like living and seeing that for like 21 years. It's just like how it's seen.
Dude, how about you? So you thought about it, right? Obviously you thought about it over the weekend. Where do you imagine that the comment, where do you tell yourself that comment came from?
I think that regardless of whether or not I think, going to take myself away from the word, right?
Yep.
I think that it came from, like, I was witnessing something, like you said, right? Like, so you attributed to, you were saying something that I didn't like, right? That is true to a certain extent, obviously, or I wouldn't have said that, right? So I'm not saying that it was what you were saying. It was how you were saying it.
So we're tone policing.
Well,
Okay.
you were tone policing hand. That's
That's basically what it was, tone policing.
Yeah,
you
because
didn't,
I-
you didn't have a problem with the message. You had a problem with the messenger. And that's
Well,
why
the
you
reason
called
is
me
because
aggressive.
if you were looking at the body language of the people you were talking to, they were like hunched over. They were being really
Oh, so I need to
quiet.
be,
hang on.
They
I need to
weren't
be
saying a lot
apologetic
of
for being
words.
confident.
No, wait, hang on.
I need to be
They weren't going to
apologetic for
listen-
being confident.
They weren't going to listen to what you were saying.
Wait, hang on. Wait,
no
wait,
one's
wait, hang
gonna
on. No,
listen
I
to
want to
you
hear. No, I want to
if
hear what you
you're-
have to say.
if-
No, hang on. First off, wait, hold on one second. Is the word is tone policing? Mm-hmm. All right, I got you. All right, man. Just want to be clear. All right, dude. So you would still say that you felt as though you would go back and say, no, my perception was that the two of them were actually a little bit more aggressive than they needed to be.
Well, I think like using the word aggressive, like I think that's almost like another conversation. Like
Okay, I got you, but you used
right.
the word
So
aggressive.
but I would like to go back to like identifying like a series of actions that I felt like was making the conversation we were having like worse.
Okay,
Like,
no, I got
like
you,
the
I got
quality
you.
of the conversation between both parties was getting worse because they were uncomfortable.
Yeah, okay,
and I wanted
hang
to
on.
ensure that like everybody was kind of understanding where everybody else was coming from because they weren't uncomfortable, and I felt like I should say something
Okay.
to kind of make them more
But
comfortable.
listen, dude, I'm just going to, I hear that. I hear that, right? So, no, hang on. No, you can, but I want to say something first, right? So here's the deal, right? I hear that. As a fellow white brother in the world of whiteness, I get that, right? However, right, you could have, so I'm going to now go to the invisible strings piece, right? Right. And tone policing, for example, is what that is that's a connection to invisible strings that people are connected to, right? So I'm going to go to that. So you are back here, and your arms are up, like the puppet, right? And the strings are coming down. And you easily could have said, oh, hey, y'all. Like, the three of us I'm feeling like we're being a little bit aggressive here. Let's just back off a little bit because they're like, whatever, right? Look at their body language. But you didn't say that. And so what you said was to the two of them, hey, I feel like you two are being pretty aggressive. And you were just doing, you were doing what you were doing, right? Got it? So I'm not even saying if you were aggressive or weren't aggressive. I mean, I will personally say I didn't experience you as aggressive, but that's neither here nor there, right?
A lot of people felt like that I wasn't aggressive.
No, I really don't think you were. But however, right, what I want to say to you is, right, if I'm you, and me as a sociologist, if I'm you thinking about everything that I talked about in class today, I'm thinking, wow, in what ways did I make that response because of factors and forces and things that affect me that I don't see and I don't understand? Like, for example, here, can you just sit right there? Can you just come up here really fast? No, hang on. Actually, you stay there. Alaric, you just stand back there. Can you just sit up here really fast? That you very likely, I will say this as a sociologist who studies this stuff, very likely you would not have made the same comment. You would not have used the word aggressive, very likely. What's your name? Katie. If Katie had been sitting there along with Monet, and Katie was saying everything that Alaire said, it's very likely you would not have used the word aggressive, right? Now, what does that mean, right? So, what does that mean for you? Like, hang on. Hold that, dude. You're going to say something too. Katie, what's it mean for you as a white woman that you can say everything that Alaire said in the same tone, if it's true? Look, I'm not being the white liberal here, right? I'm not being like, yeah, Sam the white liberal guy, he just needs to show the world that white people are racist. I'm not doing that, right? I'm just trying to be really thoughtful about the research that's out there. So, Katie, what's it mean for you that you could say everything that Alaire said, the same tone of voice and same everything, and Dalton here would not identify you as aggressive, but actually may have a kind of a positive response to you, even if the people sitting over here we're still seated in the same way and have the same body language. What does that mean for you as a white woman? How is that?
I don't know. I definitely feel like I'd get a much different response, and it'd be different because, I don't know, I feel like it'd be more of like, oh, that's cute, you have this viewpoint.
Okay,
you know?
Exactly, got you.
And like,
wouldn't be taken seriously.
Yeah, I think it'd be more that.
You don't know. He might say, hey, but hang on, but be careful here, right? So they're not the same, they're just different, right? So got it? What Katie just said is like, yeah, but I feel like I would have the same thing, right? So meaning like, hey, Alaire and I are the same, really, in a way, because I would get put down too. It's like, no. It may be what's kind of what she was implying, but that's not true, right? You're different, right? So it's all true. Like, so you like, but in all likelihood, you'd be seen different. And definitely, if it was me sitting here, stand up really fast. Just to demonstrate, stand right here. So if it was me saying the same thing, not being me, but just another white guy, it's really likely. It's absolutely likely. You would never have said aggressive. Like, fuck. Dudes. Like, what's that mean, dude? Like, what's it mean?
I'm just going to ask you a question. Like, how do you know that?
But to read the data, we do study. Here, I know I'll tell you. Dude, this is great. God, thank you for asking that.
Can I have one more question, too?
No, hang on. I'm going to answer that one, right? Dudes, we do study after... No, listen up. Dude, if Dalton... Yo. That, the question Dalton just asked right there, dude, that is the single most... Yo, hang on, listen up. That's the single most important question to ask in this class. Don't let me just be pulling thoughts out of my rear end and spitting them out in here. And you're like, oh, Sam said it, so it must be true. You know, of course. Dude, thank you for asking that. Here's where I come from.
Can I have another question?
People do, hang out. You can ask the second one, and then everyone else. You can sit down, by the way. Thanks, man. We do study after study after study where we test it up. You remember what I just did right there with the interviewing? Right? Where we put people in these rooms and we control for everything except one tiny thing. So here we control for everything. We do this over and over again and over and over and over. We put you in a room and have a seat again. And we have you talk, make an argument about something to somebody. And these two women are doing a script. In the same script, and they're actors, and do the same thing over and over and over again, right? And then we just keep bringing you in, a different you in, and somebody else, another white person, another, and we just one after another, and we just see, and then we change their script, and we make them just a little bit nicer, and a little bit whatever, a little less aggressive than you were, and you were like on a 2 on an aggression scale, so we make you a 1. And then we make you a 0, and we just keep seeing how people respond. And what we find is that, oh my God, people keep seeing women, and black women in particular, as aggressive in places where, and then we change it up. We have men come in and they do the same script. And you sit here with men, and they say exactly what Alaire said, and they're trained actors, so their body language is the same, and everything's the same. And then people like you who are in your shoes don't ever say you're being aggressive. And so that's how I know that. We just study after study after study. All it means is, dude, you have no idea what's going on in your life, just like I don't. Okay, so what do you want to say? And then they get the last 2 comments.
Yeah, no problem.
You get 30 seconds.
Like, what percentage of those white people are doing that? Because if it's 100%...
No, it's not 100%.
Okay, well then how do you know that I'm not in the minority?
Well, we don't know that, right? That's why we have no idea.
On top of that, how do you not know that it's not being attributed to some other attribute?
No,
like
maybe here's what you want to say.
Maybe I'm being confident, actually.
No, dude, here's what you want to say.
So, I don't understand how it can't be contributed to other things.
Dude, hang on. Do you know, like, yo, can you listen up? Bro, everything you're saying, if I could have written a script out for you to say just that, I would have written it out exactly like that. We don't know. We don't know. And all I'm going to say is like the best we can do is say, this might be happening. Let me just look in a mirror and try to figure out what's going on with me. Dude, what's your final comment?
I just want to say what you said, like, were you talking about earlier, like their body tone, how you felt like that was, how you perceived her as or us as being aggressive. I feel like you're just contradicting yourself at the same time, because their body tone just goes back to like the viewpoint that she is being aggressive. If she said the same thing, like no offense or anything, but if she said the same exact thing, the same exact tone that you literally just spoke to him, that would have been aggressive. So do you see where the same like
that is a good point.
Yeah.
I agree.
Listen.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, look, hang on.
Okay.
Dude, and here's the deal, bro. No, bro, listen. What she said, listen up. No, Alaire gets the last 30 seconds. Hang on. Listen up. What Monet just said isn't true. It's an idea that Monet has, and it's an idea that's worth pondering. Because it's like, whoa, what if what you just said, that was actually really interesting. For me.
That's one question.
Yeah, that's just for me.
And if you want to like as the class as a whole, if you interpreted like what we said the first time as aggressive, but you didn't interpret what he just said as aggressive, then that just goes back into like the whole study thing, because that's two of the same.
Yeah, you might have been. Yeah, exactly. But they may not have interpreted that. It's less likely they would have interpreted you as aggressive, and which is like, oh shit. Okay, final comment, dude, and then we're out of here.
Class is up.
Dude, I'll have you back up another time, dude.
You got to pay me.
Dude.